The 11th day of April 2023 it is. Good morning. This is the great KBC and this is KBC News Check. Here at News Check, it's a program that highlights the things or the news making headlines in the country and affecting you as the mwananchi. And also we look at other topical issues that are currently affecting the country. My name is Ben Troy Njue and Byron Abuli will be our sign language interpreter for this live program. A lot is happening. Hope you had a happy Easter weekend. And after the Easter weekend, something else is also happening today where Parliament is resuming after the Easter short recess. And if you ask me, they have a full in-tray when they come back. That is today at about 2:30 p.m. But before then, President William Ruto today is currently meeting the Kenya Kwanza allied MPs at State House, and we are expecting the live feed any moment from now, where I'm quite sure they will be talking about, or they have been talking about, a number of issues, but key among them, the bipartisan talks that the president and the Azimio leader Raila Odinga decided or agreed to be having, though the two sides quite are not on the same page. That is one of the issues that we also be discussing today. And also today President is having a busy day because the evaluation of the performance of ministries and parastatals report is being launched at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, KICC, any moment from now as well. And as soon as the president hits there, we will be crossing over to know exactly what the government has been doing, or the ministries and the state corporation, including parastatals, have been doing in the last 1 year. That will be coming up a little bit later, but we are looking at the state of the nation. And without further ado, allow me to introduce my guest this morning, Chris Otieno. Chris Otieno is a leadership and governance expert and also a security and safety management consultant. Chris, karibu sana.
Asante. Thank you, Mr. Njue.
I hope you had a fantastic Easter.
Yes, I had a fantastic and restful Easter.
Yes.
I was in charge throughout.
Oh. Yes. A lot of Kenyans were not able to do a lot that they do, usually because of the economic situation that is currently underway.
Absolutely. Quite a number of people are limited, and because of the cost of living. A number of them were unable to travel up country because it's a season where families get together and to talk about stuff, visit each other, get to know each other's state. But because of the harsh economic times, cost of fuel, which has really rocked the economy here, and then from the war in Ukraine and other things, it led so many of our Kenyans to opt to stay put where they are.
Well. Parliament is back. And I'm quite sure one of the biggest issues they're going to be talking or looking at is the bipartisan talks.
Yes.
Of course, they seem to be running into some headwinds, but we are hoping that after today and after the two sides sit together, maybe we'll have a lasting solution. But first things first, Parliament is coming back. And in the last couple of days and weeks, we have seen something that more or less we don't usually hear. When the government admits that indeed we do not have money, and the economic downturn that is currently, of course, occasioned by a number of things, including we are post-COVID.
Yes.
The MPs, when they go back today to Parliament, I know the first things will be on their mind is the bipartisan talk, but that is not the issue, the first thing that Awanjiko would want to hear. What should be the entry? What should be the first thing that these guys should be looking at?
The first thing that I think they should be looking at, number one, is governance. Because once we get our governance right, then the rest of the things can fall into place. Because it is in governance that we discuss pertinent issues affecting the life of every Kenyan citizen in this lovely nation of ours. Right? So as you have mentioned, yes, they have a full tray, but you'll find that their priority will be to settle up this limbo that they are in between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. That will be number one priority. Azimio side, I've already mentioned the number of guys to participate, led by Honorable Amola Tiende. Then we are also going to see what Kenya Kwanza side is going to come up with after the president, see the parliamentarians, and come up with the name of those guys. But you can preempt. You can preempt and see who probably would be there, but it's good to wait and see, and then we can know the constitution. After that, we look at how they will discuss.
Of course, we are waiting for the president to make his speech after meeting the Kenya Kwanza MPs.
Yes.
But looking on the other side, let's look at the Azimio sides.
Right.
The big names and hardliners, if you ask me. The likes of Oledama, the likes of Otiende Omolo. Those are guys that I'm quite sure they will be championing the interests of, among others, their leader. Because if you look at the list itself, the Millie Odhiambo, there are people who have been with the Azimio leader for years, and there are people who are known to be quite outspoken.
Right.
And looking at the other, we are waiting for the Kenya Kwanza side,
yes.
but let's touch on what these guys have been, or the 7 people who have been selected to be in the talks. I would like you to touch on them.
Yeah, if you look at the choice of Azimio, we have quite a number of experts in there. Omolo Otiende is an expert in law, and he can able to really articulate issues as his side of the aisle things should be articulated. They'll be very up in terms of the 7 issues or the number of issues that Azimio has fronted to the government for negotiations or for to move forward in terms of those negotiations. So I believe that he's really going to front some hardliner stance. He's going to bring his expertise in law, and he's going to really bring in quite a number of expertise that he has over the time. Same to Millie Odhiambo. She also has a very good touch on the politics of this republic. She's been there for quite a long time, right? I also believe she's going to bring in quite an expert in what she's going to discuss as they move into the bipartisan talks that also the other side is getting ready for. But I can tell you for sure that one thing that we're going to have is that each political side is going to front its point from the way their leaders would like it to be fronted. And that is why you're seeing an array of experts being chosen by the respective leaders. When this other side brings up their choice, you'll also see an array of persons, an array of expertise. Guys will bring a lot of expertise on the table to really articulate what their side would really want to have, so that at the end of the day, we can have either a one-side win, a win-win situation, and something. It must be a mix of all these for each side to see that, yes, our side was well represented.
And still on the talks, it's a good thing that you've mentioned that, of course, what we've seen from the Azimio side, we expect quite a formidable team from the Kenya Kwanza. But before then, I remember 2 weeks ago when the 2 leaders agreed that there are going to be some talks. Kenyans were so expectant. Then came the issue of the extended talks, where even the clergy, they want to be included. Yes. They also want the issues of Wanjiku, other than the issues that affect the electoral reforms or affect the leaders. They would want the extended talks. And even yesterday, over the Easter season, yes, we have seen these leaders come out to say that indeed we need to have extended talks. But judging from what the 2 sides are quite keen on, is a little bit disturbing, because I remember the Deputy President said that unless the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, admits in public that President William Ruto was legitimately elected and he is the people's president, then we cannot discuss anything. Yes. These are some of the things some of the hurdles that could come up when we begin these talks. This is something that should be addressed even before we set the ships to start sailing.
Yes. Yeah, you can actually preempt what the discussions are going to be like from what he said in the public eye. And just like you well quoted, there has to be a recognition, which is here, we'll term it as precondition discussions. Before we go to a discussion, you have to meet these conditions.
Azimio has them as well.
Every side will have them. And that is what is meant by a discussion. And when they sit there, we might not be private what will happen there, but of course we'll get a bit of here and there from the discussion that will come from these guys. But I want to tell you for sure, when they go to those discussions, there'll be hardline stance from either side. Hardline stance, because they have objectives they want to meet. At the end of the day, they also want their side to be seen, all right, as having reflected what they really had in their mind, all right?
Yeah.
So you'll see quite a divergent view, and all these guys are coming up with their strength to support their party position or to support their coalition positions, right? But at the end of the day, there'll be other players who will not be in the room. in that discussion. They'll not be in the room, but they'll also influence the outcome of what will happen there because of how they front themselves. Let's first of all look at how we got there in the first place.
Yes.
There was a representation of the President of the United States, Joe Biden, all right, when Chris Coons, the Senator of Delaware, came into the country.
Yes.
And then he met both sides of the divide. And then after that, you see, there was some softening of positions and agreeing, let's sit down and talk. That's why you saw our president came out and really used very attractive terms, very nice terms to calm down the situation. And then Azimio followed suit by the leader of Azimio coming up to the public eye and coming up with terms that did not reflect what they had in the beginning. Softer stance for them to agree. And I'm also happy to say that they've agreed on the way to follow. Let's do this and then take it to Parliament for approval. That is a very good position that we are in as at now.
But it's quite a difference if you look at when the president was announcing that we're indeed going to have talks,
yes.
and he said that, yes, indeed, from both sides, we're going to have a structured talks in Parliament. And the Azimio leader said, yes, we're going to stand down for now, and we welcome the talks. But there wasn't a Wanjiku then. The Wanjiku is coming a little bit later. And Wanjiku wants to see the cost of living come down. He wants to see the cost of unga come down, which Azimio has somewhat used as the preconditioned talks that you've just mentioned. Because it's talking about before we even do anything, we want the price of unga to come down to 100 shillings. Look at the other side of the government. Still, there are the hardliners as well. If you don't do this, we won't do this. If you don't recognize the president, we cannot have any discussion. And if you want any discussion, it has to be in Parliament. That, if we talk about Wanjiku and you talk about Parliament, then Wanjiku's interests are quite on the number 10 on the list.
I want to agree with you. If you look at how we got to where we are now, there have been quite a number of issues. We started by demonstrations, the push by Azimio to have this kind of talks. And then we say that succeeded. Some proxies and other issues that were done that brought that. But even before we now go to Parliament, there are also other complaints about the Parliament. There's a saying that Kenya Kwanza has a majority in the Parliament. So their stance might probably take the end of the same to the Senate. They might take the day. There's also an agreement, bilateral agreement, that the cost of living is high and something needs to be done. But I want to tell you, and I want to repeat what I've just said a few minutes ago, and which you agreed with, right? Is that governance will take #1 priority in them for them to agree. And we've seen some sort of governance, issues being fronted there. You must recognize the Honorable William Samoei Ruto as the president of this nation. And you had the leader of Azimio last time when he was giving his concession speech. There was Ruto, Honorable Ruto. There's no mention of His Excellency of the President of Kenya, right? This is how political negotiations are created. This is how they are built and brought up onto the table. Then last time you had the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, say, this guy started the ambassador of the US, but there was no mention of the cost of living, right? There was no mention of the cost of living in that discussion. Other things that were serving political interest for the Azimio coalition were the things that were brought up to the front, right? So that tells you, even as we go into these talks, there are elephants in the room. There are lots of things that have to be discussed for them now to say, let's now sit and have a sober discussion. These guys are saying the entry point is cost of living. These guys are saying the entry point is a recognition of the current president and the Honorable Excellency of this Republic of Nation. And we are not saying there's an agreement from the start, but that is normal. That is normal when you want to go into this kind of hard discussions. But in the long run, we're going to have an agreement come out of this discussion.
And we're hoping for that.
Yes.
And looking at the two principles, let's say Raila Odinga and President William Ruto, I believe this is the time that their brigades, because the leader of Azimio said, stand down. I think this is also the time that the leaders should be standing down on some of the demands they're making, even before the committee or the ad hoc committee or whatever they will decide to call the members who will sit in the bipartisan talks should be toning down politics. This is something that even the civil societies have raised. This is something that even the clergy has raised. And I'm quite sure this is something that Wanjiku has raised, because when Wanjiku says that you guys are going to be talking about things in Parliament, what about me?
You realize one thing with politics, right? There'll always be two sides. There are those guys who can come down very fast, but they're those hardliners. And in politics, you protect your interest, or the interest of the group that you represent. When you don't see the interest of your group represented right, then you must take a certain position for you to be able to do that. And why did Azimio bring all these points that they were bringing for discussion? They have an agenda that they want to push through this structured thing. They have an agenda, they have a plan of how they want to follow to get to the end. Yeah, and that's what we are seeing from both sides. Even the government itself, they will have an agenda. And our Deputy President, Honorable Gachagua, has come out so clearly. I'm not going to be part of handshake. The leader of Azimia has also said, I'm not going to sit down and discuss this with the Honorable Deputy President, right? They're the headline stance. But in the long run, I can assure you, they will find a political solution to all this. And I do not know at what point the discussion on cost of living will be there. But it's pertinent. That's what we are calling Wanjiku. And all of us, even the political class, recognize that's an important issue now. The cost of unga is unbelievable. The cost of fuel is unbelievable. It's the same to cost of flour. Wheat flour. It's also unbelievable. And some of the reasons why these costs are high are out of our control. For example, the country imports imported wheat from Ukraine, and we know what is happening in Ukraine. There has to be some negotiations for some farm products to pass through the sea and get to Africa. Some of these are beyond our control. But what is within our control? I believe these bipartisan talks, spearheaded by the two leaderships, right, will get us somewhere.
Now, still on the talks, we had the former Premier, Raila Odinga, say that he would like something more or less the Kofi Annan structured national accord way of doing things. And that caused jitters. We've seen leaders come out and say this is a route that will lead to maybe a handshake or even a nusumkeka or nusumkate, as they like to call it. This is something, the national accord, I had a chance to have a look at exactly what it was looking at in the year 2007, 2008, and without going to the merits or the demerits of the report, is that the national accord, more or less, was bringing in a lot of players other than the political side. And I do remember in 2007, after the post-election violence, the two sides came up with a brigade of their own.
Yes.
Raila Odinga had the likes of Orengo. Yes. They had also the president right now was also part of the
discussion,
the Odinga side of the discussion of the national accord. But unfortunately, his brigade have jitters that this national accord could be structured by the same leaders that we're talking about, to bring in the issue of a handshake or even infiltration in government.
Yes, you have had some of the members of parliament and the honorable members of parliament from both sides, or particularly from the government side, saying, we know the script that the honorable prime minister uses to get himself to the government. So there is a preempting thought by these persons that if we go for national accord, there's going to be a government of national unity, and that is going to lead to this person coming to the government. And the deputy president has said, once this guy comes into the government, you will definitely see what we've seen in the previous governments. So they have something to compare what they are seeing, and they are supporting that by rhetoric like saying, it is that government that brought us in this place where we are even unable to pay salaries for the civil servants of this republic, right? So you see there is a point being brought forward and a point being supported by quoting past events, which of course, all right, when you look at it from the surface, can give you a hint. This is what these guys are rejecting, and because of these reasons. Politicians have a way of talking to us in the public, and they say a lot of things that they discuss in the background of the public. And if you are able to read through that, then you can see. So the rejection of this proposal is purely because they foresee a handshake in the opposition coming up in the government. And they are saying, if this guy is coming to the government, then this is what we're probably going to see. The boat is going to be rocked, and that is not favorable to them.
And do you believe a lot of issues are taking backstage? I do. Backseat, because if you ask me, a couple of weeks ago, before even actually even during Mandamanos, I remember we were looking at every news article that you were looking at on television, on social media, is the security situation in the 5-6 counties that were declared disturbed, and the CS for Interior. Although he has been quite quiet, you're also a security analyst. Some of the things are taking backseat, whereas they should be addressed in the same breath as the things that we are currently addressing.
I would support him taking a backseat. And why is he taking a backseat? He's doing a lot in the backseat, right? And security matters most of the time are national issues, are not things you want to bring to the front all the time.
I totally understand, Chris. And my entry point here is this. It's always, if you look at a government should always be accountable.
That's what it is. When
people are still being killed. Before the Maandamanos, I used to see the CS, Kithure Kindiki, always coming out to condemn, also to also talk to those people who have lost. But we haven't had anything, and people are still being killed.
That's true. And that's what I'm saying. Security matters sometimes are better handled in the back. You don't have to bring all of them to the front. All right? I know that lots of stuff are being done for those who've lost their lives, and I know the Honorable Interior and Coordination head, Professor Kindiki, is doing a lot in the back. There'll be offcuts, like what has happened in the hospital of E10, where bandits went and got one of their sick persons and went away with it. And I know the nation right now everybody's being surprised. How can that happen, right? But I want to tell you there's a response to that. There's also a proactive approach to these kind of things. A response that they are pursuing this person, and proactive is we are getting ourselves prepared in the eventuality that these things might happen. Some security issues are ad hoc. They are spontaneous. They're not things that you would plan for. If you don't have intelligence on them, they will hit you and hit you so badly. Even the biggest security in the world, the US, was right in the Pentagon and right in the middle of their military might. So we are saying as a nation of Kenya, we could also be subject to those kind of things. We are saying they don't happen, but we are saying they can also happen. And when they happen, then we must have a very structured response to these kind of items. And I believe in a short while, we'll hear what has happened. Probably you might even go and get those people who did this. Force already out there going out to get these persons.
I totally concur. You are the security expert here, but Kenyans would kind of feel, if you look at other countries, when somebody dies or there's an accident or something has happened, we see the leader or somebody who is in charge come out to even condole the families. You remember the president's talked about around 4 people who were killed during the Maandamanos.
Yes.
It's always good when you put on a brave face,
right,
as the guy in charge of security, and also tell them that we will do A, B, C, D, or this and this. But the government has been quite silent for the last couple of weeks.
I believe as a nation and the current government, we have so many problems that are affecting us. Security being one of them. Yes, you're right. They should have showed a brave face, and we should have behaved like, for example, the government of Israel, right? When you come out and attack the government of Israel, within 15 minutes they've launched their counter-attack and they're back to base and quiet, I don't talk about it. Isn't it? Different, quite different from us. And we are saying, yes, that's an area of improvement that needs to be done. And we need to show a very brave face and go ahead and confirm to the citizenship. Yeah, assure them that yes, we are there and we're taking all the actions possible. And I am sure after this meeting is over, the professor will come to the public domain and say, yes, this happened in 10 and this is what we are doing. I am certain that it's going to come out and say that. Even the IG of police will come out and say that.
And the government is, according to what we are seeing and what we are hearing from our leaders, is that the government is kind of in trouble, if you ask me. Devendi, who is the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors.
Yes.
Looking at his Twitter for the last couple of days, you will feel that something is wrong somewhere. And the Kenya Revenue Authority came out to say that we've done over 93% of what we're supposed to do. We've done over 8% of what we had last year at the same time. We are 8% better. So if you're telling me they've collected over 93, in the statement that they sent yesterday, yes, 93%, I would give you a what? An A minus, right?
That's an A minus, yes.
And looking at, we are post-COVID.
Yes.
There are some of the things that we didn't even see during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the economy was quite hit. But unfortunately, now it's more or less like they are not reading the same script. Even the Deputy President, the day before yesterday, he said, yes, indeed, we don't have money. We have a dilapidated economy. And we also have dilapidated wallets and pockets for some of the government employees as well.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things that we never saw during the post-COVID, when we believed that the economy was really, really ailing. KRA says we've done our part. Government says we do not have that. Is reading from the same script, really?
They're not at all reading from the same script. We have too much going on, and it would be right if all these were brought into clarification, all right? But when the government came in, and the day they were being sworn in, the deputy president said, all right, we have a problem in terms of finances. Maybe they thought at that time they'd work out here and there, travels here and there, and then get to cover up the deficit. But that seems not to have happened. All right. Then also there has been the filling of these government positions. All positions, nearly all filled by now. And some of these positions come with hefty packs, right? In terms of operational costs, in terms of direct costs, in terms of all that come with them. And we are seeing, of course, some money will go into there. But where we are now, there is definitely a problem. And you would see you would see Azimio guys saying, since independence, this has never happened. So what is the issue? And then we're seeing very senior government persons like Deputy President saying, yes, we have a problem, but we're going to fix it. And he also says, yes, we're going to fix it the next two weeks. Counties have not been given money. Government, civil servants have not been given money. So there must be something behind the scenes being done. But also before we got there, there must have been something that was done wrong for us to get to where we are. It is not in our position now to be able to really put our hands on something and say, this was the cause of it. They've given us reasons. The previous government, in excess in terms of borrowing, which has given us a lot of debts. Right? We paid a lot of debts the previous time, but all that comes with budgeting and planning and all this kind of thing. So we can't actually lay our hands on what exactly happened, but we solidly know that, yes, we have a problem in terms of cash. We also had what the president of Tanzania said, one of the countries in East Africa is telling us to do this. There are a lot of indications that, yes, there could be a problem, and she was pointing at us as a nation. There could be lots of it. And actually, we are seeing the telltale signs. Yes, there's a problem. Civil servants have not been paid.
Okay.
It's all delayed.
And yesterday still, Devin D acknowledged that there's a lot of wastage in government. And I believe it was in January or February there, where the president talked about we are going to be cutting spending in governments. And some of the things that we are seeing, we don't believe that there have been a lot of cutting of that spending, because David yesterday did acknowledge that there's a lot of wastages in governments and in ministries as well.
Yes, he said that, and that, of course, that is very true. If you compare some of the motorcades that some of our senior government persons work with, and you compare that with, for example, in Scandinavian countries where there's a lot of cash flow, then you will see a very big difference. The kind of entourage leaving our country going to negotiate contracts out there on behalf of this nation, you would see the number of us, although there are reasons, right? But this kind of thing should be evaluated on cost-benefit analysis, right? Is it beneficial to spend this money on this kind of thing, or is it not, right? So he was right by saying heartlessness, not caring, and a lot of wastage, which are just being done by individuals without thinking. Yeah, and that's just something we really need to clamp on as a government. And the president said quite clearly that we're going to do our best. Like you said, a few things have been done. For example, trainings have been cancelled. Some people are not going for trainings outside their locations. They are doing it online, right? That will save some money, yes, but we still need bigger savings for us not to be in the situation that we are in right now.
Again, by the spending, from where I look at it, it's not quite good for the optics when you say you do not have money to pay my staff. For example, I say I don't have money to pay my staff, and yet there are like 50 more who are waiting to be employed as well. I'm talking about the CASs, which have caused a lot of discussion in the country. And even the courts have courts are yet to determine on that. But as we wait for that, if the court indeed say that it's a green light, they can take over office. It's 50 out of the 23 that we used to see earlier on. This cannot be seen as an austerity measure.
It cannot be seen as an austerity measure, but I believe there must be a way they've worked it out.
Kenyans want to see it that way. Kenyans want to see it that way.
We want to see it that way. And we are seeing that even before that is completely implemented, we have a problem. Civil servants, one of the core of our nation. People give government service to citizens, have not been paid. So we are saying definitely, absolutely, there is a problem that needs to be fixed and fixed so urgently for us to rectify and get ourselves out of this. But the president came out and assured us, yes, we have a touch on the economy, right? That assurance alone is important. But then we now need to see the actions that comes with assurance. And being the president of the nation, definitely, he has reasons why he's saying that we really need right and we have it under control.
That is the PGM meeting that was organized by the president, but let me allow our leadership and governance expert to dig in that and tell us what he thinks in regards to what has just transpired at the State House Nairobi. I'm quite sure Azimio, there are a lot of things that Azimio won't like. Limiting the conversation to IEBC, no extended mandate, issues raised by opposition shall be canvassed by the government. They've talked about, there's something else they talked about, the 34 billion shillings in subsidies cannot be accounted for. And there's something that I raised earlier on, and they said, if at all you cannot trace something and you're a government employee, I'm quite sure they can even get, if it's a CS who did that, if it's any government official that was responsible for this, they should be going for them, not just saying that money cannot be accounted for. So what do Kenyans, what do we want Kenyans to do if that money cannot be traced? Where is it?
You're very right in what you've said. And in the structure of our government, you have both consultative structure and investigative structure that can get to the lower echelons of what actually happened to that money. And we have the Constitution and the law of Kenya that can direct us or gives direction or gives guideline on how that can be fully addressed to the last stone getting turned. I am really happy by what has been presented. Just like we said, they're going to present their position in a very strong manner. And they've really done that, right? First of all, they have mentioned an important thing here, which, of course, they're using to blame the previous government, the previous administration, by saying the subsidies they want now is productive subsidies and not consumption-driven subsidies. And why are they saying that? Of course, they're supporting that with what we saw happen in the previous, where the Bay of Unga was subsidized, but they are saying 34 billion or some of this money that has not reached to the people who are supposed to have reached it is constituted in there, all right? They've given us also an overview of what they have done in terms of improving the cost of living, in that during that time the cost of living, the cost of unga, a packet of 2 kgs of unga was to around 235, 200, and now it's 185. But remember, we're coming from 90 shillings and not 190, not 180. We're coming from 90 shillings. Yeah? So there must be something that they can do better, right, to support that and bring it back to 90. Just like the person asked, when we're going to get to 100, right? There are lots of things that can be done or should be done to ensure that, yes, we have enough cash flowing and we have enough programs that support production from the word go up to the consumption level. Of course, cost is a derivative of all the activities in between, from production to consumption. Cost is a derivative of that, right? And there are so many things that can be done to ensure that that is reduced. They've also accepted, yes, the work of the opposition is to criticize and create oversight. Excellent. But there are catches that have been introduced in there. These catches are, right, our policies are working, because they are supporting the economy, the stabilization of the economy. And I've given an example of only one area, which is the cost of unga. And there are lots of economy supported by so many other areas. They've said, yeah, the cost of living is high and they're doing something about it. They've talked about creation of jobs and putting a lot of inclusive growth in everything for
okay, just a minute. Of course, there are a number of issues. I'm quite sure Azimio would like the issues they have talked about, and especially when it comes to an extended mandate of the committee. But we will discuss that a little bit deeper when we come back. Let's first of all take our first break on News Check. We'll be right back with more.